Hey everybody, welcome to CK's Antics. I'm your host and creator, CK. So, today we're talking House of Gucci movie review, okay? Warning, there's going to be spoilers. Alright, let's just get right into the meat of it. I'm going to tell you right out the gate, I really enjoyed it. 5 stars. Totally 5 stars. Worth the money to go watch it. Now, keep in mind, this is 2.5 hours long, but to be honest with you, it didn't feel that long. There might have been a couple moments where I'm like, okay, we can move on. But overall, I actually never looked at my phone, never looked at my watch. And other thing is, I have no historical knowledge whatsoever of the Gucci family, so I didn't know anything going in. I didn't know, spoiler, Mauricio is murdered. Didn't know that happened. So, yeah, warning, that happens. And I didn't really know anything about the movie itself. They say it's based on true events or true story, and really it's hard to say that when the movie is talking about and showing a very personal, really behind the scenes, closed door relationship between two people. Overall, great movie. I really liked it. I did do some research because I wanted to see like how true the movie was to actual events, and what I found was there was a book written back in 2001 called House of Gucci: Murder, Mayhem, and Sensational whatever family drama, some long title. The book goes way more in depth into the Gucci family, as well as just a lot of back and forth craziness that happened in the family, where like people are suing each other and just doing, unfortunately, horrible things to family members, and how much infighting there was in the family and around the Gucci name and everything like that. And also, the movie only portrays one son of Aldo Gucci, when in fact he had more than one son. So that was also interesting as well when you see that. And we also only get to meet one of the daughters from Patrizio and Mauricio's children. We only see one, and in fact they actually had 2 daughters. So some interesting things that the book has, really based around truly the family, whereas the movie just doesn't focus on those things. And I found that kind of interesting and decided to focus really on one particular side of the family and one particular cousin and uncle and that kind of. So anyways, altogether very interesting, but not the same as the book. So there you go. Just proof that book and movie never really match up. I haven't met anyone yet, to include myself, that said, you know what, this movie was way better than the book. Hasn't happened yet, even after the fact. Like, if there are times where I've been to a movie, haven't read the book, and said, you know what, let's go read the book, and I'm like, wow, this book is so much better than the movie. Okay, it's never happened where I'm like, yeah, movie better than the book. Not gonna happen. Now, if that's you, please let me know and what the movie was and what the book was, because I'm really interested to know that. So anyways, back on track. All right, so overall, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the portrayal of everyone. I think we got to know each of the characters, and it was a fun, entertaining thing to go to, especially when for me, when I have no expectations going in, I think it's easier for me to be like, okay, I can do that. I can see that. I'm okay with that. So that's my one of my disclaimers is, hey, I didn't have any expectations going in, which I think helps in a lot of cases when you don't have expectations going into a movie. It's hard to be let down, right? We see a lot of, behind closed doors conversations and things happening. So a lot of this is obviously at the direction and discretion of, the director and producer of the movie. But I think they do a good job of kind of helping us go along for the ride and understanding these two people and then their relationship, how they came together, and how I truly feel like there was love there, and then how they kind of fell apart. I'm going to highlight 6 characters from the movie and the actors who portrayed them, because I think those were kind of the main people that you'll see throughout the movie. All right, here we go. Let's talk about Lady Gaga. She's the first cast member I want to talk about, because I think she has the primary role in this movie. Lady Gaga plays the role of Patrizia Reggiani. She then who then ends up marrying Mariazzi Gucci. So her role was done phenomenally. Let me just say that. First of all, Lady Gaga, I think, knocked it out of the park. She did just a phenomenal job. And when I was reading about what she did to prepare for this, I do want to highlight that she never did actually speak with the actual person she's portraying, who is Patrizia Reggiani. And according to the article that I did read, Patrizia was a little kind of peeved that she actually never did get spoken to about, this portrayal of her. However, I really do like Lady Gaga's explanation of why she portrayed her as the way she did. So obviously she did a lot of studying. She did a lot of research in terms of, what did the papers say about her? What was the public saying about her? And certain family members and people that kind of knew more the inside of that Gucci family and how did they see her and stuff. So she took that and then determined that, how she wanted to portray her was show her that, one, she wasn't just automatically a bad person. We kind of want to like her from the beginning, which I think we do. Well, granted, I went in with no expectations and not knowing the story, so I didn't really go in like, oh, I can't stand that character already, because in the end, she, spoiler alert, puts a hit on her husband, which ends up killing her husband. So, anyways, we truly see, like, at least from my point, I definitely saw she was very much in love with Maurizio. And that wasn't. It was truly a love relationship. However, when they first met and when she saw or she heard who he was, when he said his name was Maurizio Gucci, and especially when he said his last name, you could see there was like, oh my gosh, this is like from the Gucci family. And it kind of, I think, foreshadowed what was probably coming. But you don't see like her just kind of weird, very powerful takeover kind of controlling Maurizio, which I think was great. I think she did it very gradually, and then kind of at the end it's like, oh dude, you just went full psycho, you're crazy. But like I said, I think Lady Gaga did a wonderful job. And some people kind of ragged on Lady Gaga's accent. I do know bad Italian accents, right? I think we all know those when they're really over exaggerated. This to me was not a bad Italian accent. Some people are kind of ragging on her accent. However, I think she did a great job. And she even said she knew a little Italian, but she worked with her speech coach specifically to take out the bad stuff that she had in her own Italian dialect to kind of get away from that and find what would be a good accent for her to have that's proper, that makes sense on her own. So I want to highlight that. I think it was great. I think personally, I didn't say it was great. I don't have an issue with her accent. I think she did a great job. I think all accents were good. I don't think there was anything like over the top or over exaggerated in terms of that. So next we're going to talk about Adam Driver. Adam Driver plays Maurizio Gucci, the husband in this movie, and he's the other main character. Now, this movie, like I said before, primarily centers around the relationship between these two. Adam Driver, I think, did a phenomenal job. As far as I know, the personality of what I read about who Maurizio Gucci really was, I think Adam Driver really nailed it. And something I did not know is that Maurizio Gucci had no interest in whatsoever this whole family Gucci business. He was a lawyer. He was actually, when those two met, he was going to school to become a lawyer. Obviously, he becomes a lawyer. And he had really no big interest in the family. But his personality, like how he was, kind of seemed like he was more of a introverted type person. And was just happy not being in that limelight. And in a way, the way she manipulates him through the movie or throughout the movie, you see he kind of has to come out and be the name, right? Be the face of Gucci. And he then kind of realizes this isn't so bad, but then you figure out that he's not so great with the business side of stuff. He just doesn't have the leadership skills really to take that and go with it. He might have good ideas. I don't think he just knows how to execute them. But Adam Driver, I think, does a phenomenal job in portraying him. Okay, let's talk other cast members. Now, next you have Al Pacino, who plays Aldo Gucci, who is the uncle to Maurizio Gucci. Then you have Jeremy Irons, who is the father of Maurizio, and he is Rodolfo Gucci. And then your other main kind of character in the Gucci family we get to know is Paolo Gucci, who is played by Jared Leto. And honestly, I didn't even know it was Jared Leto playing it, just by the amount of makeup and everything. Like, he really did a phenomenal job as well. So those are the other Gucci members, and Paolo Gucci is Aldo's Gucci's son. Okay, so that's kind of your main cast. Now, another member that we kind of the Gucci family that we kind of get to see here and there, and kind of is kind of the mastermind behind the scenes a little bit, as we see later on in the movie in certain things, Domenico De Sol, who's played by Jack Houston. And he is kind of the, not so conservator, but he's helps manage the family brand and the Gucci stuff and all that kind of stuff. So he's very interesting. And you kind of wonder what he's up to as well. He kind of seems a little sketchy at times. So those are your main type characters that you're going to see in the movie. And then one more is going to be Salma Hayek, who plays the psychic person who Patrizia ends up calling one night to basically get her fortune told, and then they actually make bond in relationship and become really good friends. You don't really see that in the movie. You don't see like their friendship growing, but we have a couple scenes that get cut to those two having conversations, and her asking her on, in a few times, hey, where are things going? What's the tarot card saying in terms of my future? And ultimately, the character Salma Hayek plays is Pina Arima. I think that's Pina Arima. That could be mispronounced, probably is mispronounced, but that's okay. But she's the psychic, and those two build this weird kind of relationship. We don't get to see it grow per se, but you realize when one of the scenes is basically Patrizia and Pina in a spa, like hanging out together, talking about things. You're like, oh, so you guys basically on go vacations or little mini getaways once in a while. So clearly that bond and relationship has grown over these years. So those are your kind of main characters that you kind of will see throughout the movie. And so that is your cast. Okay, so let's get really into the meat and potatoes of the movie. So it opens up with really the end of the movie. We see Maurizio. So we see Maurizio out enjoying some coffee, probably early morning, reading the paper. He gets on his bike and is heading back to his office. As he's climbing up the stairs, he hears his name and he turns. And then that's it. That's what we see. And then it cuts to basically beginning, and we are introduced to Patrizia, and we see where she is and where she's working at. She works with her father in their business, and her father does a transportation business, runs trucks and vans and all that kind of stuff. And then she goes out for a party and meets Maurizio Gucci, who we can tell easily is kind of introverted, doesn't want to be at this party. He would rather be probably back home studying for his law degree and all that good stuff, but he's out because he probably has to be, right? And anyways, as soon as she hears the name Gucci, like you can see, like she's like, all right, this we gotta make something of this. This is an opportunity. I'm gonna strike while the iron's hot. So she kind of, basically stalks him. We don't know how long she stalks him, but we see a scene next after that night where they met at the party, where she happens to see where he's out eating, having lunch or something like that, and then runs into him accidentally, like at a bookstore, and then it's like, oh, haha, look at this, we just happened to meet up. And anyways, they meet. She definitely is the one who ask for the date and all that kind of stuff, and then the relationship blooms, and we see that they do truly fall in love with each other. And then at that point in time, Maurizio, who's played by Adam Driver, introduces her to his dad, Rodolfo Gucci, who was like, hey, beautiful woman, great, but she's trouble. She's after the money, she's after the name, don't do it. He's like, Dad, I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyways. And the dad's like, all right, fine. Then you're out of the will, out of the family kind of thing. And he's like, sure, good. Aldo Gucci, the uncle, who's played by Al Pacino, sees that his nephew gets married, wasn't invited to the wedding, any of that. We don't see really any of Maurizio Gucci's family at the wedding. When we see that shot where you see where the bride and the groom have their partying guests sitting, yeah, Gucci's side was pretty slim. So anyways, Aldo's like, we need to rectify this. Let me get back in touch with my nephew. And then, of course, Patrizia and Aldo kind of hit it off in terms of she wants to be part of the family. She leverages his need and want to have Maurizio back in the family and back in the will and part of the Gucci family. His dad finds out that he, in fact, has a granddaughter who they named after his late wife. And then he's like, please come back into the family. I'll write you back in the will. All good. Until they realize after his death and they're going through the family things and what he inherits. So then, you know, cut to, they realize that the stocks or certificates in Gucci are not signed by the late father. And now there's this issue of like, well, how do these, you know, how do we turn these over to you? Because they weren't ever signed by your father. Patrizia does her thing, you know, she does her manipulation kind of thing. And it's like, hey, let's just talk about this later. Let's not talk about this while we're still in mourning. Let's do that another time. And it alludes to at that point in time that she's going to forge the signature, because in one of the opening scenes when we meet Patrizia, we see her forging her father's signature. So we see that she's pretty good at that. So anyways, then that happens. And then starting there, it just kind of all starts to spiral out of there, because she really starts to get her hooks into the family, really gets close with Aldo. And Aldo, you know, likes her and wants her to be part of the family because she's helping bring in Maurizio. And then it just kind of starts going downhill. At some point in time in that relationship, they fall apart. Maurizio and Patrizio just fall apart. And you know, I don't know if it's truly that Maurizio sees that he's really being manipulated and how she is, that's kind of what that parting was, and at what point in time he kind of realizes this. And then he kind of runs into an old flame, if you will, someone he knew from his like teenage years and had, you know, I think a couple other run-ins with, and then they really hit it off. He files for divorce. And Patrizia definitely loses it after that. She's like, nope, we're not going to have it. And my psychic here is doing her best, putting out her spells and stuff, and the spells just aren't working. I need something better. And that's where the two of them decide they're going to hire hitmen to murder her husband. That does happen. And that's where we find ourselves back to the opening scene. And then the real crazy part in all this, within 24 hours after the murder of her husband, she moves back into the home that he was staying at and literally kicks out the girlfriend who was staying there with like no remorse. Like she just walks in, she's like, I'm really sorry for your loss. And then they hug and all that stuff. And then she's like, bellman, please show her out. And it's just like, man, that is just cutthroat. Like just, wow. No even opportunity to be like, hey, I'll get you, you know, a couple days to get your stuff out. Or, I mean, just, you can see that how manipulative she's become, and just how it was all about the Gucci name and her wanting to be Gucci. And they actually, she does get found out as the murderer. 2 or 3 years later, she's identified also as one of the conspirators to this whole murder. And she gets sentenced to 26 years. At the court, the judge refers to her as Patrizia Reggiani, which is her maiden name. She doesn't respond, and then she's just like, I'm Gucci. I am Gucci kind of thing. So anyways, overall, really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I highly encourage you to go to it. If you can't go to it, definitely catch it streaming when it does come out in streaming. I think it's well worth your time. And the cast and the performances, I think, were really well done. And that, folks, is my review of House of Gucci.